We're lucky enough to share our planet with a diverse and beautiful range of animals. We consider animals to be a part of nature. They don't wear clothes or build complicated houses. They live as one with the elements and spend their lives outdoors. Despite that, sometimes they fall out with nature and find themselves in situations that are hard to escape from. Fortunately for our animal friends, there are almost always kind people around to help them when it happens. When it comes to having a dog as a pet, we're never really sure whether we choose them or they choose us. For Ricardo Lazo, when he saw an injured puppy on his way to a football match, he just knew he had to make sure it was okay. The problem was that he was at Sochi for the World Cup in Russia, and home for Ricardo was all the way across the world in Lima, Peru. Airports and governments have a lot of rules about transporting animals, so Ricardo had to go through the heartbreaking process of putting his new friend in an animal shelter and leaving her in Russia, whilst paperwork could be completed. The story has a happy ending though. A month after the football ended, Ricardo returned to Sochi and was able to pick up his new friend and take her back home. She's been named Businka, and Ricardo plans to open an entire animal shelter in her honor. When Hurricane Harvey blew through Houston, Texas in 2017, families were forced to flee their homes, and in some cases that sadly meant that animals were either trapped or left to fend for themselves. But even in the most challenging conditions, there were amazing people who stayed behind and put themselves at risk to rescue animals. There are countless photos and videos of people rescuing dogs, cats, and horses from the waters that flowed down the streets. For some people, their beloved pet is all they could rescue from their family home. Sometimes there just isn't a way out, no matter how much you might wish there were. This bull mouse stumbled into a crack in the earth itself and became stuck. He just couldn't find a way to climb or scramble back out again. Horses can be curious creatures, and sometimes their curiosity can get the better of them, especially when that curiosity combines with hunger. This horse, Holly, lives in Virginia. She's quite small, and worked out that she was able to climb up the stairs in her barn to the place her owner keeps the hay. That's paradise for a horse. Holly ate and ate to her heart's content, but then realized she had no way of getting back down again. Horses have bad depth perception and aren't able to walk down a staircase if they haven't been trained. Holly hadn't. That meant a specialist rescue team had to come to the scene with a harness and a crane, and winch a sedated Holly back down to the ground. She was no worse off for the experience, just a little sleepy and very full of food. Drivers are often told to check under the hood before they set off in cold and snowy weather, and this is exactly why. Animals, especially cats, will climb into the engines of cars that have recently been driven when it's cold. The heat from the engine appeals to them, and it seems like a safe and snug place to catch up on their sleep. For this Toyota Prius driver, it means they had an unexpected passenger on their journey from San Francisco all the way to Beverly Hills. She noticed strange noises coming from the engine when she arrived at her destination and was about to phone a mechanic when she realized that the noise she could hear was actually a cat's meow. Popping the hood, she found a terrified kitten wedged between the mechanical parts. It became a job for the fire service, who had to remove several engine parts to release the kitten. We're happy to report it came out unscathed, if a little confused. How far would you go to save a small animal? If you saw a squirrel accidentally touch a power line and get electrocuted, would you be sad for the squirrel or realize you had the chance to save its life? That was the approach that a gang of boys and young men took in Colombia earlier this year, when such an incident happened right in front of their eyes. One of the boys took the shocked squirrel, which was neither moving nor breathing, placed it into the seat of his motorbike, and gently performed a heart massage on it. For a long time, it appeared nothing was happening, but then the squirrel woke up and started its journey back home. It was a little unsteady on its feet, and its red coat was blackened from the shock, but it had been revived and got a second chance at life. Hopefully, it never tried to chew through a power cable again. When 3 tiny newborn puppies accidentally fell from a window into a pit of tar in India, they didn't seem to have a chance. They cried for help, but by the time anybody noticed them, they were completely stuck, with the tar setting around them. Rescue workers couldn't even pull them out of the tar without injuring them because of how thickly and strongly set the tar was. But they refused to give up. Instead, they cut around the puppies and lifted them out of the pit, and then started the process of bathing and washing them over and over to try to get rid of the tar. It seemed impossible at first, but with repetition, it finally began to shift. Nobody knew for sure whether the puppies, who were only days old, would survive their trauma. 3 days later, though, the tar was all gone, and the puppies were miraculously unharmed. The rescue center was even able to reunite them with their mother, and the family was put back together. Winter is a picturesque time of year. It's a great time to get your camera out and capture the ice and snow, along with all the animals who come out to play in it. That's exactly what Norwegian Lars Joran Langien and his friend were doing when they saw a duck slip through a crack in an icy lake and become trapped under the ice. Horrified, they watched as it thrashed around beneath the surface, freezing and unable to breathe or free itself. Lars knew what he had to do. He stripped to the waist and threw himself into the frozen waters to save the duck's life. He didn't stop at just freeing the duck either. The traumatized bird had stopped breathing, and so Lars gave it mouth-to-mouth resuscitation until it woke up. How many people would be brave enough to jump into a frozen lake in any situation, let alone to save the life of a duck? The world needs more people like Lars. Heroes never give up on anything or anyone. That makes the Bakersfield Fire Department of California heroes in our eyes. Called to a house fire in the summer of 2017, they arrived to find a house being consumed by flames and an unconscious dog behind a sofa. Jack the Shih Tzu wasn't breathing and was unresponsive to touch. It looked like time had run out for Jack, and the firefighters would probably have been expected to focus on putting the fire out. But they weren't prepared to surrender that easily. Using an oxygen mask and CPR techniques, firefighter Matt Smith brought the dog back to life in front of everybody's eyes. Understandably a little shaken up, Jack had to go to a veterinary hospital where he was treated for burned paws and a little smoke damage. But after oxygen therapy, he was fine. The following day, he was able to be reunited with his owners. It's especially frustrating when animals suffer as a result of human activity. They have a hard enough job surviving in the wild without us making it worse for them. It's sea creatures who might suffer more than any other kind. We dump a lot of waste out at sea, and they can become tangled in it. That was the case for a huge loggerhead turtle in the Pacific Ocean last December, although what he was tangled up in wasn't exactly junk. The turtle had become trapped right in the middle of 26 bales of cocaine, containing over 1,700 pounds of the drug. The ropes binding the bales together had become wrapped around the turtle's neck and fins, making it hard for him to swim. A Coast Guard vessel spotted the turtle and managed to free it by cutting the ropes away with a knife. Although he'll never understand his role in it, the turtle played a key role in one of the largest drug busts that year. In January 2012, Italian authorities were alerted to a wolf who appeared to be trapped in a freezing river. Arriving at the scene, they found that it couldn't move, was barely conscious, and was rapidly running out of time. They stepped in as quickly as they could. but by the time they got him to the bank of the river, he'd stopped breathing. The wolf was underweight, clearly sick, and had marking that showed he'd been shot by lead pellets. Things didn't look good, but they proceeded with CPR anyway. And the wolf opened its eyes and took a breath. It took 2 weeks of intensive physiotherapy at a specialist center before the wolf, who veterinarians named Navarra, was even able to walk again, so poor was his condition. Within 2 months, though, he'd put on 5 pounds in weight and was back on his feet. Humans sometimes do incredible things to save an animal's life, but the will of the animal to live is often just as amazing. There are 2 schools of thought about what you should do if you find an owlet that's fallen from a nest. Happily, the residents of Minsk, who found this one in May 2018, chose the right one. Owls are actually pretty bad at making nests. They're more likely to steal nests that have been abandoned by different species of birds. This means their eggs and their chicks often aren't a good fit for the nest. Owlets therefore fall out quite often. In the wild, this isn't a problem. They'll hide in a bush or undergrowth, wait until nighttime, and cry so their parents can find them and bring them back to the nest. In residential areas, things are different. An owlet might not survive in a city or an open space until darkness falls. Therefore, the best thing you can do if you find one is exactly what the passers-by did in Minsk. Pick the owlet up and place or throw it as high into the nearest tree as you can manage. It will grab on to the nearest branch and wait there for its mother to come and find it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.